up here.
My Camp David coffee cup.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And then it routes it through. It's so weird, man. I never understand this. The way it routes it. Okay, are we good? Okay, here we go. We got it. Technology is working now. My name's Dr. Cordie Williams, 1776 forever free. Hashtag megaphone vet, hashtag megaphone Marine, hashtag just love being a patriot. And I've got a really, really special guest. I'm going to give him like a 5-minute introduction because the guy is a stud, a complete stud, and it's an honor even to be in his presence. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson of the United States Air Force. And this guy, I mean, an accomplished author, carried the nuclear football for President Clinton, actually had a residence. I didn't even know this, Buzz, but he, if you carry the codes, if you're the guy, you actually have a bedroom in the White House. But even more than that, like just an amazing American fighting for freedom. He's running for congressional district number 7 for the U.S. Congress. And this gentleman right here did 5 tours, it looked like, in different like war-torn areas. Is that right, Buzz?
Yeah, that's it. 69 countries overall, Cordie. Great to be with you, by the way. God bless you.
Wow.
Yeah, 69
Wow.
countries, 6 continents, and most notably in terms of combat, it was, Black Hawk Down, Somalia,
Wow.
the Bosnian War, and the First Persian Gulf War. So all
Wow.
of those, and still living to talk about it.
Wow. Well, I am absolutely honored because, in the Marine Corps, we call it a POG. I was a person other than grunt. I was a supply and logistic guy. So I am always just honored to be around combat veterans in any branch of service. And like I said, sir, it's just a complete honor to have you on. And, now you're fighting for our freedom in a different capacity. And it kind of seems like anytime you get somebody in service, it kind of becomes part of their DNA. And I guess, just for our viewers out there and the voters that you guys got to vote for this guy. He's just got a beautiful heart. I've had 2 conversations with him on the phone prior to this, through text and then one on the phone. And I feel like I've known him for years. What was your big reason for wanting to jump in? Cause you've never really ran for an office before, right? I mean, you've got tons of experience to do it, but I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, and as you know, Cordie, we all take an oath of office when we come into the military, from listening to you that day in May 1st in Sacramento, I know that our oaths never expire, and I'm looking forward to serving again. I did serve in the military, for the Air Force, for 20 years, and I have never lost that love of country. I'm very patriotic. I see what's happening in our country right now, and especially happening in California. And I just think it's time to get back in the public service again. I can't fly in the Air Force anymore. I'd love to, but those days are gone. But I'd love to be able to now to represent California 7, which is Sacramento County. And we're going to be talking about what's happening on May 23rd. But like you, Cordie, I was there that day in Sacramento, and I was struck by your patriotism, by your selfless service, your oath to our nation. And I'm here to be your wingman, your brother, and serve right alongside with you.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm honored. And, before I got on camera, I actually got, emotional talking about this guy because patriots, America, the freedoms that you fought for. And I'm sure, anything I know about people that are in service is they have relatives and people in their family that went before them. Right. And I know, both my grandfathers were in World War II. My brother's a sub-nuke officer. And I knew about Marines as a young boy and respected the military, respected officers, respected, airmen, naval personnel. One of the first movies that we saw like 7th grade was Top Gun. So, like everybody else, right? So we just adored and idolized these guys. And so that never has gone away for me. But I'm honored that you said that, Buzz, because what's funny is I didn't even know you were there. You and I actually got connected by now, some mutual friends, and I didn't even know that you were there. So I'm deeply honored by that for sure.
Well, I was there the entire time, and
Wow.
you saw what was happening, and it was a beautiful, patriotic day. Americans and Californians of all sizes and shape, colors, and political affiliations were there, and it didn't have to go down like it went down. And I noticed when Gavin sent out his stormtroopers, you were the guy that stepped up on top of the flatbed there with the megaphone and basically gave the speech that I probably would have done not nearly as well as you, but
No, flattering.
every word you said, man, just struck home with me. It resonated, and I was there with my campaign manager and my communications guy, and we just sat there. We were enthralled with the whole thing, and I said we got to get in touch with Cordie because he's saying everything that I firmly believe right here. And yeah, my family also, Cordie. My dad was an Air Force pilot. He flew in Vietnam. My
Wow.
grandfather on my mom's side was a Marine in Okinawa during
Wow.
World War II, and my grandfather on my dad's side fought in World War One as a sergeant major in the Army. So I've had all those connections. I was kind of raised in that kind of family, patriotism and nation first. And thank God we have people like you and me that want to do this and do it because for all the right reasons. And I think you can probably attest to this too. In California, there's definitely an undercurrent right now of people who understand that what's happening right now in this state's unacceptable in terms of our constitutional freedoms and liberties, and it's time for Americans of all sizes and shapes to step up and say no more of this. We've got to give the state back to the citizens, and the same goes true of the nation. And God bless Donald Trump and President Trump and what he's doing for us as well.
Amen. And you know what I'm trying to tell people too, and this is why my friend Chris Lippy and I we started an organization called 1776 Forever Free, and the whole idea is, yes, I have my political affiliations, and we talked them about we talked about them on the phone call and what I believe in, who I believe in, and obviously I completely support you and believe in you. But at the core of it, I think what you said is we're all patriots. We're all patriots. We all bleed red, white, and blue. And you know, this idea that, you know, the skin color is a factor at these rallies and what's happening in, you know, California, what ethnicity you are, or that it's about your spiritual preference, or whether you're transgender or bisexual or heterosexual, you know, that's not even in the conversation to me. It's just about, do you bleed red, white, and blue? Do you want people to have freedom and choice? Do you believe in the Constitution? And do you want the United States and in particular California to open up? And I know with all our Americans, because, you know, what I hope to do is really broaden the conversation. And I know you do too, because, you know, it's guys like you with ethics and morals and character that really can feel the pulse of the people. And, you know, that's what we need communicating on not only national television, but at a grassroots level. Because I think that we don't really have that anymore, you know?
That's true, and I think the one thing that struck me about the protests on May 1st, Cordie, was just like I said, the people I talked to, it wasn't a Republican thing, it wasn't a Democratic thing, it wasn't a Libertarian thing or a Green Party thing, it was an American thing, and I think that was the beauty of it. You know, I was talking to small business owners, hundreds that day, and you know, and if you have a small business, if you're a self-made man or woman, and you have put your sweat equity into building a business, and that's your livelihood. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. You're hurting right now, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent. Right now, if you can't open up your doors and you can't open up your restaurant or open up your bar, you are hurting right now, regardless of whether you pull the lever for an R or a D. And I think I think we're seeing it across the country too. But I think what's really struck me in California in the last 3 or 4 weeks is this is not a Republican or a Democratic thing. This is an American California thing, and people get it. And that's what's unifying. I remember the days right after 9/11, because I was actually a Delta Airlines pilot flying to New York that morning. And I remember the days after 9/11, how the country came together, regardless of your political ideology. And I think that's what's happening in California right now. The state's coming together regardless of political ideology because we all feel it. We all want our liberties back. We want our freedoms. We want our beaches open. We want our stores open. We want to be able to live our lives as God has ordained us to be able to live our lives. And that's why the beautiful thing about these protests and these movements, whether it's Huntington Beach or San Diego or LA County or Sacramento County, it's again, it's not political. It's human. It's patriotic.
Yeah, and you know, I totally agree with you, by the way. You know, one of the things I'm trying to tell folks too is, you know, sometimes in some of these newspapers, and I'm not going to politicize that, but I mean, we know who's putting out the newspapers and what they're saying, right?
Right.
But it's just kind of funny in the newspapers. It's, you know, oh well, you know, we found one sign and it said COVID was a lie.
Yeah.
So now we're going to say, oh, now this group is just anti-vaxxers, right? No, these are groups of Americans. Are there Trump supporters there? Yeah. Are there people that are Democratic and liberal? Yeah, there are. Is it 40% African American, Latino American, Hispanic American? Yeah, it is. And it's unfortunate that somebody will do a whole segment. And I mean, you know better than I do, just being in politics and kind of being around the presidency for the time you were in the White House. We take one clip, right? We take an hour-long segment or an interview, and then we chop it up to 2 minutes, and that becomes the narrative of the 1 hour, 2 hour story. And obviously the current president, they've been killing it on that, and just like, oh my God. I mean, that's been the last 4 years, right? But I just kind of find it fascinating that they had a COVID at a Pacific Beach rally. There was one sign that said COVID is a lie. And now all the newspapers and the local media in San Diego painted this picture as if, wow, these are all extremists.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the guy that lost 90% of his revenue and the blood, sweat, and tears he put into his business for the last 5 to 10 years. He's kind of just sitting there and he's like, what do I do? I guess I just watched my life savings dwindle away. And, you know, I know that's why I got involved. I mean, I got involved because it was like, well, what do we do? Do we wait until the point where the government now dictates even what we put in our body? Yeah. And I don't mean to get controversial, but I think we should have a say about that. You know, I kind of think if your health and the health of your family is an inner family decision, and the government shouldn't really have a say on that. And so that was really the straw that broke the camel's back for my wife, Tanya, and I, you know, as far as getting involved in this movement.
I totally 100% agree. You know, and there was an article in the Sacramento Bee this morning, and it was exactly how you alluded to it, Cordie. It was the fact that they were talking about these movements across these protests and demonstrations across the state. And they, of course, they picked out, they had a couple pictures in there. One of them was an anti-vaccine protester. Another was something about being pro-choice. So they then characterized everybody that was at the rally on May 1st as a far alt-right group of people who were there, who believe these things that are not mainstream common beliefs in California. Nothing could be further from the truth. And you know, I saw the other day, and this is reason why I'm getting involved in this whole thing is I believe that you know, the other day Gavin Newsom talked about that he's not ruling out martial law in California. Now we are talking about, you know, the governor of California, which has the 5th largest economy in the world, is talking about the fact that he may have to institute martial law to force us to stay home. Now that's not going to fly. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care. I mean, if you are a proud California, or you're proud of your country, or a proud patriot, that kind of thing is just this is going to get ugly really quick. And you're not coming for my guns. You're not coming for my family. You're not coming for my business. You know, you're just not. And I mean, we need to call this what it is. It's been a big overreach by government. I'm not trying to downplay or short sell the 80,000 Americans we've lost to this and the families that have been affected by that. It's a tragedy. It is probably in my lifetime the worst we've ever been attacked in terms of it not being, you know, it was China, but not intentionally probably. But anyway, this to me has been a life-changing, revolutionary experience in this country. Yeah. And we've got to deal with it as the predecessors in World War II dealt with it, and World War I dealt with it as well. We've got to deal with it. And we have to remember, though, that we are Americans first. Our founding fathers believed in an idea 247 years ago that we were a country founded on Judeo-Christian values, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was the principle by which we were going to live our lives. We have to remember that, and we cannot get swept up into the Gavin Newsoms of the world or the scientists of the world who are trying to put everybody into this pigeonhole. So as a matter of fact, Cordie, you know that the fatality, the death rate in California due to COVID is 0.0005%, which means
Yeah.
that 99.9995% of us aren't going to die, have not died, and should be allowed to live our lives as free citizens of California. And that's why I got involved in this, was that I don't feel like people are listening to us, you and me.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to. They're going to have to.
Yeah, it's really sick. I'm glad you said that because, you know, I've seen the stats. I was on Graham Ledger's show OAN the other day, and it really hit me when he said that, right? Because he said he was off by like to what I don't even know. Once you get out that many zeros, I don't even know what you call that, right? Yeah. But it's you know, it's just funny. He said it was a 7 instead of a 5, but who cares, right? My point is though, I was shocked when I heard him say that, whether it's a 5, that many zeros. And we're willing to tank the economy, to your point, right? And to Graham's point, a lot of people's point out there, we're willing to tank the economy. You know, I was talking to and I'm not going to state his name, obviously, but a high-ranking official, flag officer in the Navy. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, we have to approach this problem, Cordie, you know, from the get-go. And he wasn't being critical. He was just saying, kind of telling his way of like evaluating issues. Like we can't look at it as like one path, right? We've got to have two paths. We have to have health and safety and the economy. Right. And kind of like what initially happened, there was so much scare because those initial numbers that came in that were largely based off of Italy, which if you look at the Stanford study, Dr. J.P. Iondes from Stanford, he talked about how a lot of that, and I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar by now with that one, but he talked about how a lot of the initial numbers that we got on what we thought the fatality mortality rate was based off of Italy. And what Italy was doing is taking all the people that had a case or had a symptom, including doctors and nurses, and they put them in one hospital. So of course the numbers went through the roof, everybody got it, right? And then that's what we kind of used that as a metric for saying, okay, well, this is what, you know, this is going to happen in the United States. Right. And so now we have somebody like Adolf Newsom, and, you know, at this meeting I was at the other day, this pretty high profile attorney was just, you know, kind of saying that, you know, the code that the governor of California, like in the state code, and I didn't know this, you probably know more about this than I do, but basically the code's written so that, or the state constitution, whatever you want to call it, is written so that when he declares a national emergency, he almost has like dictator level, like he can just do it, like almost already he can tell us and do whatever he wants according to the state constitution. But it's so out of touch with what our US Constitution says. Right. So it's this interesting, so there's a big loophole there that we're kind of seeing that, like, wait, you know, President Trump, what do you think about this? This is kind of interesting. You know, this is kind of interesting what's happening here. Yeah, and I think what's the biggest mistake that Newsom has made so far is, you know, the flag officer we were talking to was exactly right. One size does not fit all. I mean, you can look at, and I've been saying this from the very beginning of this thing, you know, the cure can't be worse than the disease. Yeah. You know, we have, I'm thinking about all the people whose shops or restaurants are never going to open again. You know, they only had a profit margin of like this to get them through maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And now we're talking about possibly 3 or 4 months. And so think about the impact on the economy. It's going to last for, I'm thinking, years probably. And I think there's going to be a lot of folks who lose their livelihoods because of what's happening. One size does not fit all, and the cure can't be worse than the disease. And I think that's the mistake that Newsom made. A lot of governors made that mistake. I mean, we had some that have been pretty strident, like the governor of Georgia, you know, who said, "Hey, we're opening up." And that you're starting to see that some of the counties in California are doing the same thing. Sacramento County is still kind of locked down, but El Dorado County is opening up. Placer County is opening up. You know, I currently live in Ventura County. We've been fairly open.
we've only had 19 deaths in the entire. I mean, that's 19 too many. Trust me, I get it. But
Yeah.
we've only had 19 deaths in the last 2.5, going on 3 months now, compared to L.A. County, San Bernardino County, who have had much more. So you can't just say with with one wide swatch, you can't say that people who are farmers in Oakdale, California, are held to the same standard as people living downtown San Francisco. It doesn't work that way. But that's what he did. He tried to apply one metric to all of us. And I think you're exactly right. They used the initial estimates, the initial models were so flawed. I mean, they used Italy, and the initial estimates were 200 million, 2 million Americans were going to die. Now we're looking at about 80 to 100,000, which again, that's a lot. It's too many, but it's sure beats the hell out of 2 million. And I think we're continuing to figure this thing out. I think that President Trump, whether you like the guy or not, I mean, that President Trump has done. I remember in January, being a former airline pilot, I remember when he said no more air travel to and from China. People called him a racist and xenophobic. Mm-hmm. And then he said, and no more from Asia. Same thing. And now we're looking at it. That was so timely that he probably prevented hundreds of thousands of Americans from dying from that decision alone. And now we're not flying to Europe for the exact same reason. So he's done, I think, done a fantastic job. Has not gotten the press he deserves. I mean, the press has just been every bit part of it. I think part of this, Cordie, and I'm going to get on my conservative bandwagon here a little bit.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that there are people in a Democratic Party who want this to last as far into the summer as they possibly can, because they know that they can't beat Trump as it is, and they've got people like me running for Congress and for the Senate who would be negatively affected by a crashed economy.
Yeah,
they know that, and they're willing to bank on that happening at the expense of American citizens. Again, regardless of political affiliation, they're willing to put those people who own businesses and restaurants and bars and hair salons. They're willing to put their futures at risk to make sure that the political climate going into November 3rd of this year is going to be as absolutely negative as it possibly can be for President Trump and Republicans.
100%.
Yeah.
And I just to interject, not to interrupt you though, because you're dropping truth bombs like all over the place. It's really interesting because I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm just thinking in my head as you were talking, and I was kind of thinking, if I could have voted for Clinton, I would have. Okay, if I'm being fair about it, right? I voted for George W. Bush, okay, and then I voted 2 terms for Obama, okay, and hopefully I won't, either side of that, right? Whoever likes who, right? You never know. But I think back 15 years ago, how we could have an intelligent discourse and agree to disagree about politics. It had nothing to do, it had more to do with, this is a candidate I choose and what I want for the country versus, wow, well, you are viscerally this evil person because you align with that. And I kind of shared my voting record just so our viewers, to your point, would be like even if you're not a Trump guy or you're not a Trump supporter, can't you just kind of look at the data and say that, well, there's a lot of data and it's not fake news. It's like literally where the CDC's saying, hey, we're calling every case a COVID case and we're doing this and doing that. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. I'm just saying, if you look at the data and then you look, we're 6 months out from an election. And, I got people like, my good friend, Dr. Eric Naputi, that I did an interview with him. And, a couple hours later, it was taken down and they censored it. Right. And it's just interesting. I don't know. It's just something to look at. And I just think even if you voted, let's say you voted for Hillary Clinton, can't you step back and say, even regardless of what your voting record was or has been, can't you step back and say that if we can do this and we can manipulate a situation to serve our own needs, and that is provable, or it's so gray and murky and stinks of cover up so in such a nasty way,
right?
That if that can happen, then where is America, right? And I happen to like our president. That has nothing to do with this conversation, right? I mean, it really doesn't. True. I voted two terms for Obama.
Yeah.
My opinion of what needed to happen for the country and what I needed as a human being, it shifted. And I developed and I advanced as a human being. And you know, I would hope that we would all do that. I hope we would all do inventory every 4 years and say, what does the country need? Not what do my own selfish needs, what are my own selfish needs, but what's for the greater good of what we need, what's happening with our kids, what's
Right.
happening in their education, you know. And sorry, I went on a rant there for a
No,
second.
I want to follow up on that because I think you're
Yeah.
exactly right. So I worked for President Clinton personally and very, very closely for 2 years. And he and I got along like this. I jogged with him. I went to the golf course with him. Every time he went on Marine One or Air Force One, I was right there by his side. I didn't approve of a lot of things he did as a president, but I liked the guy, and I think he was a pretty moderate president, and I think that he was the best president we possibly could have had at that time to get us through some of the things that we went through. Now, I was there during the impeachment process, and I knew that there was some guilt there, and because I knew Monica, and I knew what was going on around President Clinton, and I also thought at that point in time, this is a mistake. This is a mistake for the country to go after this, Republicans to go after this. This is not this is not what we should be doing at the time. It ended up being, in retrospect, I was right. We shouldn't have been doing that. There were other fish to fry at that point in time, and I felt the exact same way about President Trump's impeachment that I felt about Clinton. So it wasn't about a Republican versus Democrat thing. I felt like, okay, America's best interests in 1998 are not impeachment. America's best interests in 2019 are not impeachment. And I think we get wrapped up. And I think, what hopefully this movement, Cordie, that you're basically leading now because you're the face, you're the figure.
Oh, you're too kind.
No, it's true. It's true. And I knew it when I saw you that in the steps. I knew this, that hopefully something like this can bring Californians back together again, where it's not about whether there's an R or a D. It's about that we're all in this together. There are politicians on both sides. Some do things well, some don't. Some are clean and great patriots, some aren't. And I saw that on both sides in my time at the White House. Trust me, I saw things on the Republican side of the aisle I didn't like. And I just think it's time. Hopefully, this is the kind of thing that can rally this country back, this state back, this country back. And what I'm hearkening to, I think I've got a campaign commercial, Cordie. It doesn't mention Republican. It doesn't mention Democrat. It doesn't mention my opponent. It doesn't mention anything. What it talks about is let's get California back to being the great golden state once again, where people were flocking here. Let's not be the state that people are flocking out of because they can't afford to rent a home here or buy a home here. Yeah. Their businesses are going bankrupt. The taxes are too high. The school system's broke. I mean, we as a state can come together and agree that what's best for your kids and for my kids and for the school system and for small businesses should be what we all are hoping for, what we're all rooting for. And if it happens to be a Democrat, then vote for that person. If it happens to be me, then vote for that person. But whatever we can agree on, this is where we want to see the state go down the road and have it get back to a place where people want to bring their kids to raise their kids and put them in schools here, because we used to be that place. And we're not right now, but we can get back there.
Well, and I really appreciate you saying that, because, when I think back to that mess with Monica Lewinsky, I think about, and I forget how old I was. I'm 40 now, but I think it was like 16 or I don't know how old I was.
You're just a pup, man. You're just a pup.
I was just a pup. Yeah, because he did what? So he was 92 to right around 98, I think Clinton was.
He was 92 to 2000. Actually, he got elected in 92. So he was 93 to 2001, theoretically. He left in January 2001 when George W. Bush got elected. And the Monica thing, so I got there to the White House in May of 1996. I left in the fall of 1998. So I was there during his reelection campaign in 96. And all through the Monica stuff, the Ken Starr stuff, Paula Jones. And I seriously could not wait to get out of there. I went to the Air Force Academy after that to be a commander, or just kind of get blue again, get Air Force again. But that was all going on. And I tell you what, the country kind of came to a standstill. He was kind of incapacitated in terms of being a president and a world leader. he was concerned about his legacy and about his legal status in a lot of cases, about pending having to resign. And there was probably 6-9 months there, in my opinion, in my experience, where the White House basically was just a really dark place to live. And it didn't have to happen. I mean, he didn't have to do that with Monica for sure, but we didn't have to go through that whole drawn out impeachment crap either. And we just went through it again. And it's really unnecessary. I mean, there's a lot of egos in Washington, D.C. for sure. And there's a lot of people who've been bought off by lobbyists and huge corporations. But again, the way our country works is that they are our servants, not vice versa.
Amen.
We have to remember that when we put people in office, they're supposed to be working for us and not the exact opposite. And like I'm sure you
Wow.
learned in the Marine Corps, is that
Yeah.
loyalty works both ways,
Yeah.
up and down the chain of command. And if you're not, and so if you're a politician and you can't engender loyalty, and you're not giving it back, you're not a very good politician. You're not a very good leader. You're not a servant.
I love that, because I say that all the time, that it's kind of like, as a doctor, I work for the patients. They hire me, and it's not, and they can fire me whenever they want. Like I work for you. It's about serving you.
Right.
And sometimes, not all MDs or medical doctors do this, but I'm always a firm believer of, like, sometimes when you get more in that medical realm of things, there's this attitude or this prestige kind of build up that, like, I'm a doctor, you're going to do whatever I say, absolute. And just doesn't work that way. The relationship, like you said, the relationship of leadership has to go both ways. What I was going to say about the Clinton White House, just to touch on that for a second, is even as a young man, 16, 15 years old, I always thought that the whole affair, whatever you want to call it, that was between Clinton and his wife. And I felt like it didn't have anything to do with the presidency. So I totally agree with you about that. And I just don't know why sometimes with history, as Americans, we can't say, okay, it's not about Republican or Democrat. What's good for the country and who's the person, not what is the media saying about what's happening, because the media every 4 years or 8 years has their spin on whatever they think we need. But what does the individual think that we need? What does the individual resonate with? What are the messages they resonate with? And the candidate I chose for a reason of, I like authenticity and I like simplicity. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're like, the furthest thing that I don't want an eloquent speaker. Okay. I really don't. Because the eloquent speaker is the one that is generally, and I've been told I'm a good speaker, so I try to go away from this sometimes. A lot of the times the eloquent speaker that has the exact word to say and it sounds perfect and it's polished, there's a lack of sincerity there, and there's a lack of honesty there. And I really, since you and I spoke, really got the vibe from you of this traditional, good-hearted, very morally based, ethical, good soul that genuinely doesn't want to be on the hill so that he can have a 30-year career to retire into. If that happens, great, right? But it's all about, I can tell that you get the pulse of the people, and I feel like a lot of times that's, politicians, to your point, they get stuck in the muck of, the pork barreling and doing this favor to get him into office and stuff like that. And, I just want to acknowledge you for just having that clear message of really feeling the people.
Well, thanks. I remember when I walked out of the White House, for my last day there, I told my wife, this is kind of prophetic now, but I told my wife, I said, I'm never going to be a politician. Honey, I'm right now, I'm never doing this. I don't want anything to do with it. And I've been able to not do that for 22 years now. But I think it's also something to be said for the fact that there's a calling. I mean, you have a calling for medicine, and you had a calling for the Marine Corps, and I think I had a calling to be, to fly airplanes for the United States of America with an American flag on my shoulder. And I feel a calling now because I want to make sure that what I leave my children, I've got a 21-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old son, and a 14-year-old son. Well, I leave my children, I want it to be as good, if not better, than what I had. growing up, and I had a great life. I mean, I wouldn't change literally a day. So I'm seeing that those odds are decreasing in terms of what we can expect to leave our children. And I want their children to have it even better than they have it. You know, I kind of think that, and I think that's where a lot of politicians have lost the connection to the people. When you have people that have been in Washington D.C. for 30 or 40 years, have made a career out of it. I mean, the average, well, a congressperson right now makes $174,000 a year, and we have multi-millionaires who've done nothing in their lives but serve in Congress or in the Senate, who are, you know, her, like, I'm gonna throw out a couple names. Nancy Pelosi is a perfect example. She makes $174,000 a year, and she owns properties and vineyards all up and down the California coast. Now, God bless her. I mean, that's good business decision making and those kind of things. But you know, where does, I think when the founders created the Constitution, created our republic, our democratic republic, they understood that they sensed that the people should be, servants should be there to serve the people. And I think that over the years we've kind of lost that connection. Not everybody. There's some great congressmen right now. Dan Kavanaugh is a perfect example. Guys like that. I think Mike Pence is a great servant. Guys like that. But I think a lot of people, again, on both sides of the aisle, get there and they kind of lose the connection with the people they're supposed to be serving back in their home districts, their home states, whatever it may be. And I think that, you know, I think putting people into office that are bringing a fresh approach, have not been bought and paid for over the years, who are
Crenshaw is a good one too.
Well, who's that?
Dan Crenshaw.
Oh, Dan Crenshaw. That's what. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw is an excellent guy. A perfect example of what it means. I think Devin Nunes is a good example of that kind of thing. And you know, people who have not. You're talking about being eloquent speakers. I mean, you can be so smooth as a speaker that nobody hears anything you say because there's no depth to it. There's nothing. You know, there's nothing to it. I mean, Bill Clinton was a dynamic speaker, and I don't care who he was speaking to, he had the ability to connect with you on a one-to-one basis. He would have a crowd, whether Republican or Democrat, he would have a crowd in his palm of his hand because he felt, he emoted, he reached out, he touched you. He was smooth, but he wasn't too smooth. And I think the same thing is true of Ronald Reagan was a great speaker, but not very smooth. So I think it all comes from the heart. I think people can see through it when you're not speaking from the heart. You've got to have some substance there, and you've got to be able to connect to people. And again, I really think, Cordie, that, you know, if people want people in America and in California want to have hope. They want you to understand what they're going through. They want you to give them the answers that they're asking for. They don't want more platitudes. They don't want more hollow, you know, colloquialisms. They don't want to be talked down to. They just want people to understand, servants to understand what they're all about and say, yes, I can feel your pain. I understand that. We're going to try to fix that. This is how we're going to do it. That's what they want. And again, that's across all party lines. I don't care. I mean, Libertarian, Republican, Democrat, I don't care who you are. If you can reach people and hear them, as a commander in the Air Force, open door policy kind of thing. If you have a problem, you come talk to me. You can always come talk to me. I might not be able to fix it, but I'm going to listen to you and try to fix it. And I think that's what people want in a president, in a congressman, congresswoman, in a mayor, a governor, all the way down to the school board systems. You know, I think that people just want to be heard.
I love that. I absolutely love that and completely agree with you. And, you know, I hope that congressionally, you know, I don't know if it's possible. You know, I know Ted Cruz submitted something, but for everybody's sake, you know, I hope that we can get term limits.
Yes.
And I wish the left and the right would come to an agreement on that, because with term limits, you know, you get, in my opinion, you tell me, I think you would know more about this than I would, but I feel like you get enough of when it's being refreshed and there's a different person in there periodically, not only are you getting creativity and getting new ideas, but you're also getting the pulse of the people.
Yeah.
You're really, you know, to your point, if I have a vineyard and I'm a multimillionaire, however I became that way on $174,000 a year, right? It's just kind of funny. I'm just saying,
yeah.
You know, if that happens over a period of time, not only from just the idea of now I have millions of dollars. I've been in this higher level position for 20 plus years. I don't know. Does it that congressman that started out with bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they were grinding and they were getting $5 donations or whatever the case might be, and maybe they were eating, obviously I'm a holistic doctor, so I don't believe this, but they're eating Jack in the Box, trying to get by on the campaign trail, and they get a Senate or congressional seat in the US Congress. And now it's 30 years out and they're a millionaire. I don't know. Do they still remember the guy that they met at that rally in Southern California? I don't know.
I don't think that most of them do. And I'm a firm believer in term limits also. In fact, my proposal would be that a senator gets 2 terms, that's 12 years. A congressman gets 5, which is 10 years. So you're there for 10 years max for a congressman, 12 for a senator, and then you leave. I mean, that's long. It does take you a little bit of spinning up time, right? So you get there.
Yeah.
You got to build a staff. You got to make the connections. You got to start working on committees. You got to figure out, who's who and what's what. So the first couple of years, you're a rookie. You're trying to figure out how things work, but after that, then you have another 8 to 10 years where you say, okay, I've got this now. I know these people. I can do that. I know what's going on here. But then when you get too comfortable, you leave. And then let somebody else do it. I mean, that's kind of how we do it in the military. I mean, you get promoted to a certain point. And they say, okay, goodbye, because they need fresh blood, fresh ideas. If we promoted guys to colonel and flag officer and let them there forever, they would have no clue what's going on down at the one striper level. They just wouldn't, And I think that's why the up and out thing for the military works pretty well. So I think it would work out great in Capitol Hill. We give presidents 2 terms, right? Give senators 2 terms. Because the congressmen only have 2 years. So they're congressmen basically and congresswomen basically, they're in a campaign mode all the time because they've got every 2 years they're doing it again, right? So give them 5 terms, so 10 years max, and then they've got to move. And I think we failed ourselves because we don't do that. We don't kick out the people who own a Burj du Soleil in Napa, who are worth several $100 million. You know what I mean? We just don't, and we can only defeat them. People like to get them out when we take away their power and say it's time. But sometimes people like that, I'll say they're welcome. But we'll address that. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in term limits, and I think that we have become a republic. Our politicians have become careerists. It's not a good thing in the military, and it's not a good thing in politics. You can't make a career on being a congressman or a senator or whatever. You just can't. You need to do something else after a while.
Well, and I wonder how much, to your point, that influences policy decisions. Because if I know the election's coming in 2 years, and I'm not going to disclose everything that you and I had in a private conversation, but if there's somebody that votes and they always vote one way, and they're pushing that button behind, whoever they feel like is their mentor, their authority, or kind of whether they're left or right or whatever, and they're trying to swing the vote, I wonder how much is influence off the politics of that and whether they'll be endorsed later. But I also wonder if I know the election's coming in a year and I just got my feet wet, I haven't really introduced any bills, I'm just, to your point, trying to figure it out, how much of what I do or don't do and my vote kind of is based on that next election, which I know, most politicians, obviously, they want to get reelected, but where does the intent shift to just creating a job versus, okay, to your point, I'm a servant and I want to serve humanity because I work for the voters.
That's a great point. And one of the other, I think, unfortunate realities of our current system is that there's so much money involved. I mean, you can't literally, this is true regardless of what your party affiliation is. You really can't be successful in a campaign unless you raise the appropriate money to be able to get your name out there, to do the commercials, to do the mailers, to have the phone banks, that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of that going on where like, for example, President Clinton, that guy, that poor guy, to get elected to the president first time and a second time, he was so beholden to so many special interest groups that really this is my opinion, he didn't have a lot of decision-making authority. He had to check on, depending whatever caucus he was dealing with or whatever the issue was, he had to make sure that he was answering the people, that had gotten him there in the first place financially. That is a sad, but I think unfortunate reality that that's how our system is developed. And I think that, Mike Garcia, a buddy of mine who got elected day before yesterday in California 25,
that's awesome.
He and I have the same approach. We're both grassroots politicians. Nobody on my team gets paid. Every single dollar that we raise, whether it be online or through donors, goes directly to signage or websites or commercials, that kind of thing. I'm not paying. My consultant doesn't make a dime. My campaign manager doesn't make a dime. I don't make a dime. It all goes to the campaign itself. I'm hoping that's
awesome.
kind of the new trend. That's how Trump's got a lot of money, but that's how Trump did it. Trump put his own money into it. He didn't take any money from anybody else. He was so brilliant in how he earned his media. He would call into CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and just ramble and get his point across without having been a sit on commercials. I mean, it was brilliant. So, and I think in today's social media world, that's a very effective way of doing it, especially during a virus lockdown. The only way you can get out there right now is to use the social media thing, which you're doing a great job with, by the way.
Thanks.
So
Appreciate it.
yeah, and so I think that's the wave. I think in the future is we're going to have less and less and less career politicians and more people who want to serve for the right reasons and do it on a budget that doesn't require you to sell your soul just to win that office. And I think that's the traditional trajectory, and I'm hoping that changes.
Well, I really hope our viewers saw your heart. And I just want to give you kind of a few minutes to kind of talk about what you want for California. Because I see your heart, I see your authenticity, and just even in the way that you're talking about raising money, just from a campaign contribution standpoint, I hope you guys and ladies out there can kind of see that this is a guy that we need to hold a seat in Congress, and we need more people like him, because people like him, they're doing it they want a better America. They want a better future for your kids. And what's really cool is he's agreed to come on May 23rd to Liberty Fest, Liberty Jam. We got a couple of different names out there, but it's going to be May 23rd. It's at the Capitol in Sacramento. We've got Kofi Anderson playing. We're going to have a couple of other acts that are to be announced, some speakers, and it's going to be everybody just out there barbecuing, having a good time. Kind of having a party in Newsom's backyard, so to speak. We're not going to be on Capitol grounds because we don't want the Starship Troopers to knock over and hit somebody in the face with a grill, or who knows what could happen there. So we're not going to do that, Gavi. We're just going to be out there peacefully having a nice little barbecue and get together for Americans. And Buzz has agreed to come out and be one of the speakers. So yeah, Buzz, that's my little ad or infomercial there. But I'd love for you to just share, like, what do you want for California?
Well, thanks. I can't wait to be there with you, Cordie. It's going to be a lot of fun. In fact, I'm bringing my family too, so I'm looking forward to being there. Yeah, it's so when as a California resident, my wife's a California native, and I look at the state and just think that we could do so much better in terms of our public school system. I talked about the fact that we have the fifth largest economy in the world, and our public school systems are number 48 in the nation. That's unacceptable, quite frankly. I look at our homeless in downtown Sacramento or LA, San Francisco, San Diego. And a lot of these guys and girls, Cordie, are fellow vets of ours who've come back from overseas, and have been over. I've got friends of mine who've been over to Iraq and Afghanistan 7, 8, 9 times. They come back, and sometimes they have visible injuries, and sometimes they're not very visible. They're PTSD or they're brain injuries, and a lot of these guys and girls can't find employment, and they're on the street, and that's a crime. That should not be happening in California. It should not be happening in the United States of America. We sent them there. We owe them a return, and we owe them a future. And we're so far right now, we're not doing that with a lot of these folks. It's not just, I'm not just talking about vets. I'm talking about those in the streets that have mental disorders, addiction disorders, alcoholism. I mean, it's sad. It's tragic, but it's reality in California. And I feel really I feel for the small business owners that are being overtaxed, that are being forced to leave their home state to go to places like Idaho and New Mexico and Colorado and Nevada and Texas. And we owe them the opportunity to stay here and be able to have a living, enjoy the gains of their sweat equity and stay here and give them a little relief from the overburdening tax system we have here and the regulation system we have here that are driving them out. And finally, I'm a big legal immigration proponent. I think that we need to figure out how we control our borders in terms of, I consider it to be a national security issue, that we don't even know who we have here in the country. In the state of California, we should be doing it legally. I would propose we find a way to build a pathway to citizenship for the DACA recipients. There's no way, it's untenable. It's inhumane to send them back to where they were brought from by their parents. We need to figure out a way to have them become full functioning citizens of the U.S. and California. So there are a lot of things I could go on for forever probably, but it's all about making California better for my kids, your kids, everybody else's kids, and giving them a chance to have the freedoms and the liberties that you and I grew up with and fought for. I'm not done fighting yet. So I'll see you on May 23rd. It's going to be a blast, and I'm looking forward to having a beer with a lot of great patriots and citizens out there and having a drink with you, Cordie, when we get there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And in closing, what I was just going to say to everybody out there is, some of you might be wondering, well, why did you have this guy on? Well, I think his bio speaks for itself, but what I would say is, I hope this small little interview and time that we had with Buzz today, and thank you so much, Buzz, for doing it.
My pleasure.
Kind of showed you that this guy's a meat and potatoes guy. He's like you and me, puts his pants on the same way, just a heartfelt, amazing dude. And, I wanted to have him on because he's such a freedom and choice guy. Everything he wants is about your kids, and it's about America. And that's why he's speaking at Liberty Jam, Liberty Fest. He's speaking there because he knows we need to open California. He knows that there are people that are hurting out there, and he feels the pulse of the people. And so, whether you're red or blue or whatever, we want you to show up to Liberty Fest, Liberty Jam on May 23rd, Saturday at 12 p.m. But we want you to see this guy speak. And I'm going to ask you to think about voting for him. I'm 100% voting for him. But if you're on the fence, right, at least question that. If you are blue, think about coming over and looking at the character of a man that has literally been a servant his entire life. And he's continuing on that at the very young age of 25 to continue that service, right? He's continuing that service. And, I'm going to blow him up for a second. He speaks literally, there's like 10 different schools on here that he speaks at. Chapel Hill, North Carolina, he's spoken there. He's been on Fox and Friends, Hardball with Chris Matthews. He's spoken at Pepperdine, St. Louis University, University of North Carolina, UC Berkeley. So this is a man that he's written 3 books. He's extremely accomplished, but at the core of who he is, he bleeds red, white, and blue. And I'm serious. I got a bromance with you. I got to tell you, I got a major bromance with you, Buzz. I just think you're great, man. I can't wait to shake your hand in person, give you a hug, and thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Cordie. And it's Americans like you that make this whole thing work. And God bless you and all you're doing. Again, I'm thrilled to be your wingman. I'll see you next week. I'll see you next week, and I'll see a bunch of the rest of you guys, the Californians, Sacramentoans, all you guys, come out to the Liberty Fest, Liberty Jam at the Capitol on May 23rd at noon, and I'll be there. Cordie will be there, and with his baseball hat on backwards, and we're gonna
absolutely. I started getting a tan line right here. Somebody's like, "What's that weird thing?" It's the backwards baseball cap, right?
Yeah, man.
But God bless you, brother. Thank you so much. And there's a Latin term I really love, and the Marine Corps took it, I guess, but it's Semper Fi. Semper Fi to you. And I can't wait to see you next Saturday.
I'm looking forward to it. I got a K-bar on my wall over here from the Marine White House military aid. That
Oh, there you go. I love that. I love that. You'll have to send me a picture of that later.
You betcha. Take
God
care.
bless you, sir. Semper Fi. See you soon.
Okay, take care.
You too.